Welcome, everybody, to Viva Alive. And today I am flying solo on today's podcast, which is about changing tracks on well-being. And what could that be? And one of the things that I've become aware of is that we have a very short period of time on the planet. We are here and we actually don't even pay attention to how the quality of our living is, the quality of how we're doing things in our daily lives, if we're happy with relationships, if we're happy with how we do everything. Like, do you really love to make dinner every night? I did a workshop yesterday for a group of people, and it was fabulous. And most of the people who were in the workshop were miserable. They weren't miserable because of the workshop, they were just miserable in their lives. And yet they're trying to cover up their misery with, here, I'm just going to go to work. And I'm going to go to work because it allows me to make money. And how many hours in a day do you spend going to work, coming back from work, and doing work, and then sticking in your head about solving problems about work, all the while it's not bringing you that exuberance of living that we could have? And sometimes what that is like just tuning out and doing everything on autopilot. And when we do things on autopilot, we don't even recognize that there's something that we can change, something that we could dynamically change. And that's the interesting part. And somebody just put a note in the chats asking, like, what is changing tracks? Well, changing tracks is exactly that. So, you know how you're on a train and it's going along and it could continue in the same direction. And then all of a sudden, somebody who's driving the train says, we need to move over to track number 2 so we don't have a disastrous train wreck ahead of us because there's something else on the track. The something else on the track could be your future. It could be all of the things that you've been avoiding that are sitting there. And it's so interesting because today, like one of the people that I was talking to earlier, what they have been doing is going along in their lives, progressing, desiring to progress, and they have kids and they're doing their best to be a mom and they're doing their best to grow their individual business. And yet things in their relationship wasn't working. It was kind of stopping them. And then all they did was try to fix it. Have any of you ever tried to fix a relationship that wasn't working? Making yourself wrong because it wasn't working, trying to deny that it wasn't working, and not really having a way to change it. And I think that that's the important piece. Not having the way to change it is a thing that sticks us. Where, and then what's really interesting about how consciousness works is that as we go along the track, we'll use the metaphor of changing tracks. As we go along the track, our body starts to give us information. So you get a pain in the back of your head, you get a headache. You do things like bump into furniture so you can't walk, kind of like so you can't take another step forward. And all of those things can be the things that the universe has tried so many times to tell you. Okay, you have a stomach ache, you still have a stomach ache. Okay, you're ignoring that, you go take stomach medication. Now things are coming forward in your life and more things require change. Well, you didn't hear it the first time and you didn't hear it the second time. You didn't hear it the third time. So now you keep on banging into things so that you cannot move forward. If you have to lie in bed so that you're quiet enough to hear what is going on in your world. So now you escalate it, or the universe escalates it for you. So you will pay attention. The big, like, headache, pain in that neck, and no medication, generally speaking, will ever change it because the cause of it is not a internal pain that's creating the pain. It's the life you've been ignoring, the signals from your body that you're ignoring, and it is not going to turn them down until you get the thing you need to know about it. So now you're sitting there in pain, and what is really required is to change tracks, to be willing to be kind enough to yourself to ask a question about what's really going on here. Like, what is it that the question I would generally use in that scenario is like, what am I avoiding here? Like, what is it that my body is desperately showing me? It's not telling you, it's showing you. It's showing you that you need to stop, like in this case, needing to stop and take a look at it. And in the scenario that I'm describing, it's like it'd been going on and on and on, and the person was desperately trying to change themselves to fit in to their relationship. And as though they were the one that needed to change. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's something we are like not willing to look at with us, where we're being unkind to others because we're in pain ourselves as a reflection of that. And we can't understand why people are avoiding us, not going for dinner with us, not being around us, and not seeing that what we're being to people around us is really unkind. And sometimes it just requires that stopping. But really, the idea about being kind to us is kind of interesting because it's the one thing we're not taught. We're taught to be kind to others, to make sure that everyone else around you mostly is okay. And then somehow along the way, we will fit ourselves in that picture. However, what if it was the other way around? What if in every scenario that came up, the important thing was to start with you? And it's kind of interesting because it's one of the things that I noticed about me with business for quite a long time, that I would look at things and go, wow, if I can just make this happen, it's going to be so great. But I never included me and who I was in the business. It was always, how can I make this happen so that people are coming to courses, that it's really great, that businesses change and prosper? And I omitted me. Well, a business can't really grow if you're not in it. Your life can't really grow if you're not in it. If you're doing it for the external, sorry, this is a deep dive into psychological blah blah. But what if it's really about honoring you? And someone put in the chat, like, what is caring for being kind to you? Well, it's truly honoring you. It's truly honoring what's going on. And when you can get that place of honoring you, you don't give up any part of you for anyone or anything else. Now, somebody might suggest that, that's some sort of thing that you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to do it for everybody else. That caring for you is like egomaniacal, or having ego, so you are, going forward so nobody else counts. And it's so interesting because it's not true. And it's really funny. There was a book that was written by Stephen Covey called The 7 Habits of Successful People, I think it was. And on like the first or second page, one of the things that he said was like, you need to make sure you're good first before, or successful leaders, that was the name of the book. You have to make sure that you're good first, and then you can lead others forward. You can't do it from being sort of not present and not being fully present and being good in your life. And it's not about perfection. It's about having the strength of who you are in that entire process. And then as a leader, you can move forward from a place that people will be able to know what that is. So when you're functioning from somewhat as a leader, if you're functioning from trying to get it together, trying to pretend that your life is good when it's not, um, having self-doubt, all of the people in your organization start to mirror that. You don't know it, but that's kind of how it works. And so now you have an entire organization that's functioning from less than it could. Excuse me. So there's another note in the chat. What would people in the future will need to know about this? Well, what if you started with, that's a great question, actually. And what if we were the important part? Going back to where I started was like, we are on this planet for not very long. Some people, a very short time, like even 10 years. And others might make it to 70 and others might make it to 100. I'm asking for 180 is like the place where I would like to, because I have so many things to, I would like to create and be and enjoy the planet, which sounds funny. But when you get more clear on what it is that how living is, truly living is, you actually start to see how magnificent the planet is, how magnificent the colors, the capacity to see the color on the leaves of the tree. So currently I'm in Canada and the trees are just starting to blossom. So like that really bright green and they're growing and they look happy. It's like, it's such a gift to be able to see it and acknowledge like, wow, it's so beautiful to see things growing. It's so beautiful to go and look at the ocean and see it being vibrant in the way that it can. But most people walk on the earth, doing their stuff, stuck in their head, checked out, and not even being able to acknowledge all the greatness that's around them, all the beauty that the earth has to offer, and really all the beauty that people have to offer if they're if they're willing to like, start to gander down the road of something that's bigger than just inside their head. So what would people need to know in the future about this? Well, what if it's not the future? What if it's about starting now? What if jumping tracks or changing tracks was really about getting present to and ask the hard questions? And people always say to me, it's like, Terrie, you ask the hardest questions, but ask the hard questions to you. Like, okay, is where I am at right now, is it really working? And be willing to not just dismiss it in your head, but to really be clear on it. And I kind of ask that question of myself almost every 5 days. Because if I ask it every 5 days, it's not that my life is wrong or the choices that I have made are wrong. It is that I would love to make sure that I don't autopilot my life so that it passes by. And I sit there at the end and go, was that really like everything I could have in my life? Because we're checked out about doing things the way everybody checks out and does things. So it's the having the patience and the vulnerability to stay present with that, like, is this really working? Is my life really working? And if my life is really working for me, is there something I'd like to add here to make it be greater? What is it? And then if it's not, which usually if I'm asking the question, somehow in some part of my life, I'm aware something needs to change. Otherwise, the question wouldn't become present. It would just be like, oh wow, this is so great. Let's go have fun. Let's go play. Let's go create more. It's usually when the question pops into my head is like the sign that changing tracks is required. That um that changing tracks is what needs to happen to continue to make it fun, to continue to be living. And that's why we call this podcast Viva Alive, because it's really why we're here is to be living, not just filling in time, not just making money. When I was young, I used to think if I can just get to the other end of this life, how many of you are functioning from if I can just get to the end of, if I can just make enough money to retire, so then I can start living, as though that's the target. But what if the target is different? What if it could be different? And I think that the inclusion of us in all of that process is how it works. So changing tracks can be as simple as becoming aware of, is it working? Like, is this working? Doesn't matter what part of your life, it could be your entire life. Or it could be like, is how I'm choosing my relationship now, is it really working for me? No. If it's not, ask another question. How would I change this? How could I get it so that it's fun and honors me? Oh, the inclusion of you. I don't know if you noticed that includes you. Like the relationship is two people. It's not how do I fix myself to fix it so I fit into the other person's life. It's how is it that I can be so I'm living and together we create something greater. And if it's not working, then what is it that's really required? Do I have to end the relationship, change the relationship, change how I want to live within that? Like I have people that I know that they're married and they live in different countries, not just different cities, different countries that are like 8 hour flights away. And they've been married for a long time and have kids. And that's what's required, not for their relationship mostly, but what they require from an economic perspective because they both have different elements. But they honor themselves and honor each other in what each other would like. So one needed to move back to the Middle East, and the honoring of that person, the one who wasn't moving was here. I honor you and your choices, and I honor that we are together, whether we are living in the same house or not. And that's another way to do that, which most people would think is cuckoo, but it works. And it works for both of them. And it works in a way that actually creates greater because when they see each other, they're so excited to see each other. So it doesn't have to be the way that we've suggested that it has to be. So if we look at what it is that people could look at for the future, for their own lives, what if it's as simple as identifying that something needs to change and then asking a question about what needs to change? Like, if I continue to follow this business leader, and I get that it's not, I'm listening to this business leader all the time, and now it's no longer congruent with where I'm going, what I see as like fun and greatness and whatever. Is it going to work? Is it going to work for me? Do I need to go and listen to another business leader for some other time so I can get more information? Or what if I just gather all this information that I get from different business leaders and move forward from my own perspective about what that is? And that's kind of what leadership is. It's not necessarily copying someone else's ideas, words, how they do things. It is about looking at all the things that are out there and then what it is that's unique to you, because it's the uniqueness of you that is the coolness of you. And most people try to do life from copying others. They either copy them socially, they copy them culturally, they copy their parents because that's what they learned. And it is though it's them. And being different is the gift because if we are different, then we are truly honoring us because there's not one person so far that they've discovered on the planet that has a duplicate of a fingerprint. Leaves are the same way. They can't duplicate them. So we have this thing is like everyone's trying to fit in so that they fit in. But what if fitting in is a thing that's creating the lack of well-being in your life? That you're trying to be like others so people will see you as not different. And that is where the thing comes where it's like you need to change tracks to being you, being the uniqueness that you are. So well-being actually becomes easy. It is when we are trying to be like other people to fit into the mold of what that looks like, is where people start to, um, when people when people start to do it as others do. And there's another really great question in the chat. It's like, how do we change this so that we're not functioning on autopilot? It's a really great question because most people don't even know that that's something that they can do. The first thing is to make a choice. Ask a question, make a choice. How would making a choice change anything? First of all, asking a question will start to change things. I know, like we've talked about it a lot on this podcast about asking questions, and really asking questions is the beginning of changing things. First of all, from that, it starts to change the energy in the field of what we're asking to change. And the second thing is then choosing it, making a choice. Well, how could making a choice change something? Well, it does. It's kind of like, okay, I recognize that let's go back to the relationship thing. I recognize this isn't working for me, and I am so unhappy that now I can't even get out of bed. My body is saying, done. You need to pay attention to this. And sometimes with just the choice of, okay, I'm not doing it that way anymore. Now what could I choose? Well, a choice could be is I'm just going to start honoring me right now. Right now could be I'm just going to lie in bed until I can get the sense of what next step to take. And that's really what choice is like taking a step, and it doesn't have to be big. It could be, um, it could be like really small. And it's funny because I was looking well-being, was always connected to always connected to things like mental health and stress and all those kinds of things. And I was thinking the other day about there was a time when I was young in my teens and I had some psychiatrist put me on all of these drugs um, to manage what they saw was depression and anxiety. Basically, I was autistic, knew too much, was too aware, and the drugs weren't working for me because they made me feel like I was nothing, like walking around like a zombie. And and whatever it is that they had thought that I was had anxiety and depression wasn't really true. However, I just one day I went, okay, this is enough. This is not working. Like I can't stand feeling like I'm half dead all the time. Now, I did exactly, don't follow this. But what I did was I just took all the pills, flushed them down the toilet, done. That was my step forward to going, this is changing. I don't recommend it. Okay, so this I don't recommend it. I recommend, like, if you're going to make that choice, then go and see your physician and find a way to move that along, move it along so that you don't have side effects if you're, on stuff that you need to wean yourself off of. But that would be a choice that changed my life. I went, no more. It can't be this way anymore. If my life is walking around half drugged, so I don't feel or see the rest of the world, I become numb to it, it's not enough for me. Now, was that a small choice or a big choice? I would say that's in the big choice category, but it also is an example of like, okay, this is changing. And from that choice, I started to make choices in my life that were in the direction of I would like to be living more. You get how that would work, right? Numb, pills, not feeling well. And certainly there was stuff in my life that I wasn't particularly happy with. And I also was highly aware of everyone else's anxiety and depression around me, which, if you're very highly aware, you can be aware of everyone else's anxiety and depression around you if you tune into it. So that's what choice looks like. But choice could be, wow, I'm actually going to get present and make sure that as much as possible, I am going to live life to the degree that makes my life like so happy, so joyous, so exciting to be in that I never want to stop. And for me, that is changing tracks on well-being, because now well-being is no longer the conversation. Stress is no longer the conversation. Anxiety and depression are no longer the conversation because you are being and everything is well. It's not a fight for or against needing to be well or not well. And living becomes an exciting, exuberant place to be. And maybe if you can't get what that is, maybe it's not an example of how your life is currently, then, like we always do on this podcast, ask questions. So, what are the questions I would give for you today if you're looking at changing tracks on well-being? Okay, question number one. Is the life I'm currently living totally working for me? And if you don't get a resounding yes, what part of my life do I need to do differently? I'll just start with one thing, just one thing. And then the next question you could ask is, well, it's okay, but it's kind of, you know, drumming along. I would ask, what can I add? How many things can I add so that life is so exciting? Because most people who are super talented, creative, off the charts really require so much more in their life. They can't do life in the mundane. So what could I add? And when you make that choice, you actually change tracks. Your life becomes different because you asked the question and you made a choice, and make the choice in the direction of what honors you and allows you to have that fun of being here. It's not a bad thing to be an adult and have fun. It could be even greater than you imagine, and live on your terms. Navigate what doesn't work and live on your terms. So, thank you everybody for joining today. So grateful you came. And my solo Viva podcast was entertaining for you. And I'll see you next week. Me and Daniela will be together. See you then. Have a great one.